So yeah. So and I wanted to do this activity now with virtual. The virtual world has been difficult because I like to incorporate music into my activity. 'Cause what I'm doing, giving out writing activities, it just feels like it's like with taking the SATs. Where I'm just like, hey, write like this, write like that. But I, hip hop is meant to be a collaborative effort. You know, Shakespeare, he wrote plays, and plays is, plays involve a cast, so that has a collaborative effort as well. Um, so I have them doing. Sorry, I have a scam phone. So actually do an adaptive version of one of these lines, or a couplet, your icebreaker couplet in 10 syllables. But I would ask if I could give you a couple of minutes to try to give me one or the other, and then we'll move on. We'll speak them.
Okay. Want my icebreaker?
Yes, please.
Okay. I am an English teacher in the South. Please don't put falsehoods in my ears or mouth.
Mm,
I've got one.
that was-
Leslie Warren directs Jeff State players, envied by them all, hated by haters.
uh, Another way to get students involved, like for me to create, I love writing, so I guess it's easy. It's easy for me. But just whenever I giving students activities, I'm a big fan of theater. That's why I'm pursuing a theater education degree. I got fun school, but because you're able to be interactive with students, when giving them activities, you can be a part of it in some way. When students see that you're a part of it, that it opens them up to share more, and that includes also writing. Whenever I do workshops, whenever I go to schools and I do activities and I give students activities, the teachers that share and actually participate, they're the ones that have this. They're the ones that have the most outgoing students, or the students that will share the most, and they just connect with the teacher. So
Yeah, you got to show them it's okay to look stupid, and
humbleness
then you
is
don't
key.
look stupid.
Exactly, humbleness is key. So we're gonna move ahead. Thank y'all for sharing those intros. So Sonnet 18 is most famous sonnet. Usually when I ask people about what they know about Shakespeare, I usually get three things. I get to be and not to be. That's not even the whole line, but that's good enough. To be and not to be. I get Romeo and Juliet, and I usually get Sonnet 18. Uh, do you have a volunteer that would like to read Sonnet 18?
Sure. Shall I compare thee to a summer's day? Thou art more lovely, more temperate. Rough winds do shake the darling buds of May, and summer's lease hath all too short a date. Sometimes too hot the eye of heaven shines, and oft his gold complexion dimmed, and every fair from fair sometimes declines, by chance or nature's changing course untrimmed. But thy eternal summer shall not fade, nor lose possession of that fair thou owest, nor shall death brag thou wanderest in his shade, when in eternal lines to time thou growest. So long as men can breathe, or eyes can see, so long lives this, and gives life to thee.
Sonnet 18, his most famous sonnet. So, this is another one. First off, part of the reason why I like using Sonnet 18 and Sonnet 130 is again the first two lines. It gives first two lines are sort of a contrast to each other. Um, and I'm gonna ask y'all these questions. If somebody was, I love asking. Oh, to ask a young person this is amazing. If somebody came up to you and said, "Shall I compare thee to a summer's day?" What would be your reaction? Students don't know why they saying, "Shall I compare thee to a summer's day?" What does this mean? Um, this person is weird. You know, anything. But again, you just want to get them talking, get their opinion on it, and you ask them, why would you compare somebody to a summer's day, in your opinion? And all of my students for today, why would you compare somebody to a summer's day?
Because summer is free and warm and open, and it gives you just that sense of warmth and pleasure.
Exactly. So that means it's a pleasant thing. Comparing somebody to a sunny day is a pleasant thing. How does a sunny day look? You look good. You look hot. Could have been a pickup line. You think Shakespeare was trying to work this, right? You know, so just different things to asking, and the second line kind of I connect the second line to line one. Thou art thou art more lovely and more temperate. You are more lovelier than a summer's day. Temperate. That word looks like the word temperature. I actually, and the debate is amazing because when I was teaching this in Tallahassee, Florida, and I say, somebody shall I compare thee to a summer's day? And they're like, summer's day is like 110 degrees. It's sweaty. It's blah blah blah. People that live in the sun, they don't want to be compared to a sweaty day. So I'm saying, temperate. You're like the perfect day. You're like an 85-degree day. You're the lovely day. You're lovelier than a summer's day. And as somebody that travels the UK a lot, well, I used to before this all ended, COVID started. It rains all the time, and it can get gloomy over there. So when Shakespeare was comparing you to a sunny day, you're like a diamond in the rough. It was rare back in those times. So you're like this rare beauty. So just that comparison, just to get them talking. And now that you see this, he starts off with this wonderful metaphor, um, which can connect to an activity that I will discuss with you guys. Do you guys see, this weather metaphor? And then he starts breaking down this weather metaphor. Do you guys see other weather terms in there? The third term you see, just from the third line alone, rough winds do shake the darling buds of May. Um, a rough wind, I use a pen as a flower. You know, what could a rough wind do to this lovely flower? It can corrupt this look. It can mess up this look. So something sudden can mess up this image. Um, Summer's lease hath all too short a day. What's he trying to say right there? Summer has a short day, right? Um, Sometime too hot, the eye of heaven shine. The eye of heaven. Um, Too much sun can change one's look. Um, so again, I asked them, what do you? I would ask them throughout breaking down these lines, what do you think he's trying to say? Because also Shakespeare can also change the complexion or the theme of the play throughout the middle of the sonnet. He can give you it at the end, like Sonnet 130. So that's why it's cool with 14 lines. We can dissect it more. Gives him more confidence when dissecting soliloquy or a scene in general. So, again, the first four lines, you're like a sunny day. You're lovelier than a sunny day. But we know like a sudden event, like a rough wind can change this look. can change the darling buds of May. Summer's lease. Summer has the shortest season. Short is the shortest season. So we know this look like the summer is short. Sometimes too hot, the eye of heaven shine. Often is his gold complexion dim. So sometimes too much sun exposure, not enough sun exposure can change one's image, one's look. And I know I asked y'all, but if you were introducing students just through Sonnet 18, you can ask them, what does fair mean in this part? What do they believe fair mean? Line 7 and line 8 go together. And every fair from fair sometime declines by chance or nature changing course untrimmed. Um, and fair means beauty in its time. So fair, this beauty can decline. Beauty can decline in time just by chance or just by nature take taking its course. So just the first 8 lines, just breaking down this sonnet. You're like a sunny day. We know a sudden event, like a rough wind, can mess up this sunny day. We know that this look can change. We know that you can wake up tomorrow and have a totally different look. We know too much exposure can change one's look, or not enough exposure, can change your look. And your beauty, like with high schoolers, I used to look just like y'all, but then you know hair start growing everywhere, gray start coming. This is Shakespeare's version of declining. I'm doing it gracefully, but we're declining, right? So Shakespeare is saying you're declining, and this would I would usually ask these questions. I would ask these questions to these students just to get their opinion. What do they think? What is their reaction? Like another activity could be what would be your reaction sonnet, your response to a sonnet 18 or sonnet 130. So line 9, but thy eternal summer shall not fade. So the first 8 lines was like, you're like a summer's day, but we know this could change and this can go away. You know, so that was like the cliffhanger towards the mid. Now we call this the voltage. It has a little change. But thy eternal summer shall not fade. But you, eternal. Ask students what the eternal means. Forever. He wants this look to to last forever. And you know, you can actually discuss the fact that in Shakespeare's time, there was no photography. That's why it was all drawings of Shakespeare. So how would Shakespeare preserve this look? He's probably trying to preserve it through this poem. But thy eternal summer shall not fade, nor lose possession of that fair, of that beauty that thou own. Now, when I like to get students to read Sonnet 18, because usually whoever has this line, always, that word always gets everybody of all ages. But part of that, him changing words and contracting words is to keep the pattern of the iambic pentameter. Da 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 da. Now, we again, just like how we discussed earlier, sometimes we would say it in different ways. Like I rap this in a different way. I rap Sonnet 18 in 2 different ways. And just because it rhymes doesn't mean you have to rap it. Shakespeare wrote this over 400 years ago. Rap is only 40 years old. So, but when I say rhyme, I just think of just the rhyme scheme, that Shakespeare, he had when poets rhyme, they have a different rhyme scheme. Um, So yes, so that but thy eternal summer shall not fade, nor lose the possession, the beauty that you own. I love this line right here. Nor shall these 2 lines right here, nor shall death brag thou wanderest in his shade, when in eternal lines to time thou growest. Now, again, I say 10 different Shakespeareans here, 10 different ways of, you might have 10 different ways of breaking down this line. I have a couple meanings for this line right here. I would like to know, in your own words, in your own opinion, what does line 11 and line 12 mean to you? What do you believe they mean to you? I'll give you a couple minutes. Can y'all see it? I feel like I'm like torn between seeing the screen and seeing. I keep forgetting I'm sharing the screen.
Yeah, it's really clear. So lines 11 and 12, um, the word lines is really rich,
Hmm.
and among other things, no doubt it means the poet's own lines of verse. That is,
Hmm.
this sonnet itself,
Hmm.
which immortalizes the object of his love, and so that will never die because it'll always be in print, and people in Alabama in 2021 will still be reading it and talking about it. And so death will never be able to brag
Hmm.
that it's uh, um, overshadowing his love.
Hmm. Exactly. So exactly in 2021, 400. This is the 455th anniversary, I believe, this year of his death. Um, we will be studying your work, and people will know how beautiful you are. So long as men can breathe or eyes can see. So long lives this. So long lives this poem. So long lives this look. This gives life to this look. And also, I and maybe I maybe sometimes I need to take a break from studying sonnets. But he first off he's personifying death bragging that wanders in his shade. That the term I know Shakespeare didn't create this term, but the new term that in like 2019 when you're like that's sort of funny to me. Nor shall death brag that wanders in his shade when in eternal lines. And for me, eternal lines, for me as a poet, it means these lines. But could lines also mean wrinkles? As death shall not brag as you age and wrinkles start growing as time grows, as time passes and lines start because wrinkles are eternal. As long unless you yeah, you'll get students saying unless you both you buy your little things to get it off. But shall shall death brag when because these lines will last eternally, or no shall death brag when wrinkles or eternal lines come as time pass. So that's just I don't know. I just love the fact and there's different sonnets in Shakespeare's. There's different quotes in Shakespeare's sonnets. There was like double and triple entendres that they can have different meanings. And a cool thing about the sonnets, working with the sonnets, is he had no linear notes. There was like, we don't know who was he talking about. They're all up for speculation. Even that's why there are a million books about the same group of sonnets. So that's why I try to put the adaptation or the summary in the student's hand. I will give them direction, tell them this is sort of what I think, and try to begin a discussion within the class and forming, try to begin a discussion within the class or yeah, or the group, theater group that I'm working with. So again, I have my own version of Sonnet 18. I have my own version of Sonnet 18, which I will gladly do. And it's definitely line for line for Sonnet 18. Um, I start with Sonnet 130 because that's a comical one, and it gets them, especially if you're working with a group of students that whether they know each other or don't know each other, is a perfect icebreaker to get them discussing this a story. Like if a loved one gave you this and discussed all your flaws and said they love you, it could be a sibling, it could be anybody. What would be your reaction? Would you then you can have fun with um, you know writing a response. Shakespeare has this wonderful insult book, this insult generator book. Students love insults. The world loves insults. I don't know why, but um, this is ways of connecting students to Shakespeare. And for those who have classes who they feel they haven't they have a lot of students that said there's no way we can relate this to Shakespeare, whether they're reading a history, a comedy, or a tragedy. I'll ask them. I usually ask three questions. I'll ask them. Have you ever had had differences with your parents, like an issue with your parents? Like it could be something as small as a curfew. Have you ever had been upset with your parents? Have you ever been have you ever been insulted or have been insulted by somebody? And like, have you ever have you ever done something or had something done behind your back? And it could be something as small as like doing a rabbit ears behind somebody's back. Something in secret. That is basically Shakespeare in a nutshell. Arguing with your parents, insults. He's very gory. It's basically like reality TV. And there's definitely a lot of stories that students have, different movies and stuff that students that grew up with that can be connected to one of a Shakespearean plot that can, there's different ways of connecting students to a Shakespearean story, or you know that's just my interpretation. And with the sonnets, they all love sonnets. So for them to write to somebody, or to another way of expressing their feelings, showing a humble side of Shakespeare. This is just another way of expressing themselves. To get them to write a collaborative, here's the way you can get them to write collaborative. Sonnet 18. This is what I want to do with. I don't know who's with us. We got 4 people. Yeah. All right. So normally, yeah. Normally I would break down. We'll have different groups. Um, One option, and this would be an option that you can use for your group or your class. Um, Shakespeare is creating this metaphor for his muse. He's creating his metaphor. He compares somebody to a sunny day. If you had a subject and you wanted to compare somebody or something, if you wanted to make a metaphor for that subject, I would say start with a quatrain. What would you compare this person to? And then start breaking down the reason why you would making this comparison to this person. Like for instance, if I was to say life is like a roller coaster, what things would I add into this life? How could my life be like a roller coaster? I'm just asking. What would I add?
Twists and turns and upside downs and the fearful falls and
You have the fear, twists and turns, excitement, fear. You can start over. Um, yeah. So did eh, to give you some examples, I've had somebody compare their best friend to a honey badger. Like I've done this with a high school. They compared somebody compared their best friend to a honey badger. One, because she has a short frame. She was in a play that she had to put like a white streak in her hair. She's feisty. She protects her friends. She actually mentioned that she bites. I don't know how you bites, but that could have been cheeky. But she started adding different facts of the honey badger that compares with her friend. So she put it in a whole sonnet. I usually have my people compare, start with a quatrain and then evolve into the second quatrain until you have a full sonnet. I've had a young lady who has breaking. She was in the middle of a breakup, felt bad for her, but she compared the breakup to a sunny day. So when they split up, the cloud went away and the sun came out. So so they basically break down the metaphor. She definitely, basically broke down the metaphor. Um, if you had a subject, what would you compare this subject to, and how would why is this subject? Why are you making that comparison? And for that, I would ask them to use iambic pentameter. I would like them to use the same rhyme scheme that Shakespeare uses, and don't necessarily, and this is just for you, don't necessarily worry about iambic pentameter, but to help them get creative, um, you would like every line to have 10 syllables. And then first draft doesn't necessarily have to have 10 syllables because it's easier to edit. It's easy to edit. You want them to get words on the paper. So you don't want them to have too many guidelines, but getting the words on the paper, um, once the words on the paper, is easier for them to rearrange words and add and subtract syllables, and it's easier to edit their pieces. So that's one piece that I would like y'all to do. But for this one right here, since we have four people and four different um, we have four different components of Sonnet 18. We have the first quatrain, second quatrain, third quatrain, and the couplet. We're gonna make a collaborative adaptation of a sonnet. And for this one, I would give y'all the option of writing this in couplet or writing this in rhyme, but I really just want it in your own words. Uh, do we have any volunteers to, if you would like the couple quatrain number one, quatrain number two, quatrain number three, or quatrain number four?
I'll take quatrain number 2 so I can follow somebody's lead.
Okay.
Are we restating it? Like, are we paraphrasing it, or are we creating something new?
You writing it in your own words. Like you you normally wouldn't say, "Shall I compare thee to a summer's day?" So what does "Shall I compare thee to a summer's day" mean to you, and how would you say it? Like for me, I say this. I think it's a pickup line. So for me, is you remind me of the weather in the middle of June. You're hot. I got cheeky with it, but how would you say the lines that Shakespeare used? How would you modernize it and say it in what city are you in?
Oxford, Alabama.
Oxford, Alabama. How would you use that Oxford, Alabama slang and rewrite it? We're gonna have a collaborative sonnet based on Alabama. Yes.
And Devon, should I wait until the first quatrain's done so that I can make
Actually,
coherent?
um, what you couldn't do is I think you can work on it because the second quatrain actually can go by itself.
Okay.
But once it's done, I usually put people in breakout rooms. So if we had different groups, you would write your part and then go to the first group to see how theirs ends, so you can connect. But you can write yours by yourself, and
Okay.
then at the end, let me put this back up. Any more volunteer? Hmm.
I'll take three.
You'll take three.
All right, I'll do one then.
Okay. I can round it out. And when I give my students to write, and I have them, trying the option of incorporating rhymes or couplets, I tell them to, if they have a saying, like if they know how they want to align, if they and they're comfortable with that line, I would tell them to put that line on there. So if their line ended with a word like night, and the saying that they saying, they're locked into that, they feel, this like stuck out in me, and I want to put it in. Um, Sometimes it's hard to find the ending couplet, and MCs do this. You just think of words that rhyme with night, and you can put that on the side: fight, light, fight, kite, and then that actually helps out with a light bulb coming in their head, like, oh, I can use this word and try to incorporate one of those words. And Shakespeare uses perfect rhyme. I, for this, I like to give the option of slanted rhymes. So in Shakespeare's world, bike, like riding a bike, and light would not match. But in this, it matched because they sound like they rhyme. That vowel sound works.
Okay, I could read it too, but I thought I'd send it on to Devon because he might want to bring them all together in a document so that we could see them all together.
Okay.
So I've got the second quatrain. Um, should we hear the first one first?
Uh, uh, Megan typed it. Actually, if you type it in the in order, and then I'll read it.
Okay.
We can do that.
Okay. Mine doesn't rhyme. It's got 10 syllables per line, but it doesn't rhyme.
No, well, this is first step is just getting words on paper.
Right.
Second step for me would be the rhyme part, and by the rhyme part is just it's the matter of getting a thesaurus or using
I
rhymezone.com.
mean, it's scary. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
My
it's way
sister's a
easier to
poet.
edit. Yeah, it's just a matter of getting the words on paper and then editing to then adding your swag to your thoughts. So this is just first draft. The third part would be putting the um, making sure it has 10 syllables. Then the last part would be the cadence. How would we, how we work cadence.
Okay.
But necessarily that doesn't no, don't worry about that because that was I said don't worry about syllables. That's just the steps that we're only just seeing like how you would say that. Um what were your just your thoughts on because normally I usually get students to write the whole sonnet or that other option that I told y'all, a metaphoric sonnet. They have the option either write a metaphoric sonnet. I'm sorry.
I got 3 lines done.
Okay. So what was your thoughts on trying to write an adaptation? Was it difficult? Was it hard?
We
Was
used
it
to do this in graduate school when I took my Shakespeare acting class. My instructor would make us do the Reader's Digest version
mhm,
um, of the sonnets that you were doing and break them down. We had to, scan them and then write our translations of them as part of our tests. So,
mm,
uh, yeah, I'm not perfect at it, but because it's also been 20 something years since graduate school.
Yeah, I was gonna say I haven't done anything like this in a long time, like as far as a writing exercise, I guess. So I think that builds some empathy, but I can also see the value of that as a teacher to say, I'm gonna write my own and show you I'm willing to throw myself on the altar of dignity and sacrifice myself as well. That I'm not gonna ask you to do something that I'm not gonna do it, myself. And so
mhm,
definitely see how it is a little bit intimidating, but it's also fun. And they remember those kinds of things that challenge them creatively. Really gets, I think it gets the synapses firing. And they might not remember anything you do in school, but they're going to remember that one day that they had, a really good creative thing to let them shine. So
mhm.
I appreciate the
And,
exercise.
Even if they don't
and
end up loving Shakespeare, if you can introduce them to the thesaurus, even an online thesaurus, and they learn how to look up words that have the same meaning, but hey, they have different levels of power, um, then that's success.
Yeah, I was going to type this in the chat earlier as well, but my school really emphasizes they do not want us to teach whole Shakespearean works, and they don't want us to have those in the curriculum. They just want us to teach like Act One, and that's it. They say an excerpt should be sufficient, which just does not sit very well with me.
So
Because
this is
how do
why
you
now I
character
teach
develop?
college and I'm asking students, have you read this or this or this? Because I assume they did. They're like, nope, haven't read any of it. You're like,
And they don't get the thematic implications. Like you can't just read Act One of Romeo and Juliet and understand the theme of the play because you really haven't seen the characters develop any. But considering that there's only so much you can shut your door and just do what you want to do, so like sonnets are a way to get students working with and digging into Shakespearean text and seeing that it's really not as overwhelming and intimidating as you think it's going to be. Obviously, there's so much talent, and I could never do what he did with the syllables and the meaning and all that. But the sonnets are there.
Again,
Um,
if you know how to find words to rhyme that match, and you know how to
Yep.
count your
and
syllables,
and I'm sorry,
you too can
Devon,
write like Shakespeare.
one of the things in it, because in my theater appreciation course, it's just kind of a, yes, they take a test on 12th night with Mark Rylance, of course, right? Um, but one of the things that actually sparks them is I have a PowerPoint and we go through slides and I'm like, have you ever said all that glitters isn't gold, or all of a sudden, or in a pickle, or foul play, or wear your heart on your sleeve? And they're like, yeah, we said that. I'm like, then you speak Shakespeare. You already do it and you just don't know it.
Hmm.
All right, I get
Exactly.
emphatic. I'm an actor.
Oh
I'm an
no,
actor.
no. I try to tell them. I try to connect students all the time, but they've seen Shakespeare somehow and they don't even know it, or said a statement or idiom, Shakespeare, and didn't even know it. So this is, yeah, different ways of connecting. It gives them the when doing this writing, I usually give an option of writing by yourself, writing solo, or writing in groups. There's a comfort level in writing in groups. There's also, I mean, I used to be, sometimes I wanted to write by myself also. So there's just a comfort level in sharing different thoughts, and that's, again, if you're breaking down different opinions of what this sonnet means and what you're trying to say, it, you know practices collaboration. Um, yeah, it practices, yeah, different, trying to meet in the middle. And also with this, this helps with presentation, because I always, even though I offer the option of presenting, I usually get a lot of presenters, um, volunteer presenters, when working with writing here. So, and when doing this a collaborative effort, since this is, do you have the option of writing your own sonnet or doing a collaborative sonnet depending on the time, how much time we have. This is a fingerprinted version of Sonnet 18. Like, this will not be created anywhere else. We're in this randoms, and that's sort of what we get when you know breaking down a poem or breaking down a scene into a play or adaptation. Whenever doing a collaborative effort, it's like this is like a snowflake effort. This is, who knows when we're gonna be in this area right now together again, writing this. Yeah, I need to make sure I copy and paste this piece right here of our adaptation from our workshop. Could I compare you to summer? You are as beautiful and fun to be around. But the beauty of summer is a runner, and the clock quickly runs down. I sweat and grasp for breath in this brute heat, and poor green plants turn brown, then yellow pale. Every mortal thing endures foul defeat, and every sweet and savory will grow stale. But your hotness will not be forgotten, nor will you lose the beauty you possess. Death cannot say he hovers over you, because these words still increase your beauty. Ah, see? Now, can't hear you. The, the thing I like with the collaborative effort and y'all not seeing each other's work is it has a unique feel to it, and it definitely, it flips twice. Um, Sort of, it I know it's not the same thing, but since Shakespeare, a lot of Shakespeare's sonnets had the volta, like that change in theme. This sort of reminds me of that change in theme. Also, with collaborations and different writers, you have your different literary devices, different imagery that different writers use. So it brings all that into a big big gumbo, big gumbo pot of food for thought for everybody. And this was the breakdown that we have for Sonnet 18. So this was yeah, this is sort of one of the things I like to do. Another thing with sonnets, again, we can do um, adaptation. You create based on the sonnet that you choose. It can be they can have their own. I keep saying adaptation. They can have a response. It's a collaborative effort actually helps. This works for, when we're working with English class or theater classes, especially for theater classes, to get them on their feet in the presentation. But um, to practice to open up presentation for English classes, this is a great way to get them presenting. And if you wanted to like progress to more formal work, say writing and things like that. If you wanted to, because next month is the National Poetry Month, and actually on the 21st, March 21st is National Poetry Day. I don't know why it's on different months. Like National Poetry Day is in March, but anyway. Um, one assignment that students can have is actually trying to choose their own sonnet and breaking down their own sonnet, because as much as they students believe that they can't connect with Shakespeare, they can connect to these sonnets. They can connect to these sonnets. Um Case in point, I did this assignment with a group of students in Atlanta, and they had to choose sonnets. They were asked to choose sonnets for to break down and dissect. One student chose the sonnet that I was working on, Sonnet 66, which could have been it could have been written yesterday. It was written about, Shakespeare's actually discussing a list of social injustices that were happening in his time in Sonnet 66. And not only were we able to connect it to to what was going on, because this happened around the time when there was a lot of protests and riots going on. He actually was a we actually were able to connect it to Hamlet, to be or not to be, when Hamlet is discussing, who would I actually know the rap too. Who will bear the whips and scorns of time, the oppressor's wrong, the proud man's contumely, the pangs that despise love. Hamlet is just, discussing, the issues that he's having in his time. So I actually created a Sonnet 66 Hamlet remix, but we were able to do tangents off of that sonnet and discuss what was going on in their area, what was going on in their school, or how are they feeling about, their situation with COVID, and connect that to Sonnet 66. But another activity students can have is just diving into the sonnets. Do you think they're gonna read all 154 sonnets in the night? Probably not. They might swim through 20 of them, but they're gonna, within those 20. The good thing about these sonnets is within those 20 they will be able to find one or two that they connect with, and be able to bring into school, bring to class, and have their own showcase with them and make it their own and have their own meaning. They have to do, a lot of their research. Um, so yeah, that's the way I like to break down my workshop with um, sonnet with sonnets.